Claude Fable 5 costs more than 3 times what Kimi K3 does per output token, $50 per million versus 15, and that gap changes the math on any high volume app you're running right now. Kimi K3 just dropped as an open source challenger, so the timing on this matters. I'm comparing both models across 5 real tests, pulling from official docs, artificial analysis benchmarks, and community reports. No vendor money, no cherry picking. And honestly, the price gap surprised me less than what happens when you actually need to send a video file through your pipeline. And one of these models just can't do it at all. So this one's for you if you're building something that runs a lot of tokens, needs long documents in one pass, or touches any kind of media input. Pick the wrong model and you're either paying 3 times too much or shipping a pipeline that breaks the moment someone drops a video file in. All right, so test 1 is context window and long document handling. What goes wrong? Without enough context is pretty brutal. You try to feed a full code base or a book-length doc into the model, it hits the limit halfway through, and now you're chunking everything manually and losing coherence between chunks, which is a real workflow killer. Both Kimi K3 and Claude Fable 5 come in at 1 million tokens, and both have flat pricing across the full context with no long context surcharge tacked on. You can see on screen it's a clean match. I was honestly expecting one of them to have a catch buried in the pricing docs, but there isn't one. Now, same context size doesn't mean the models actually use that context equally well. 1 million tokens on paper and 1 million tokens of reliable recall in practice can be 2 pretty different things. There's no head-to-head retrieval benchmark between these 2 right now. So take the tie at face value. Test 1 is a dead tie. Both sit at 1 million tokens, both charge flat across the full window. I was expecting Fable 5 to have some kind of premium tier for long context, and it just doesn't. Neither does Kimi. Scoreboard stays blank for now, 0 to 0 with 1 tied. Okay, so test 2 is real-time reasoning speed. You ask the model something, you sit there watching a spinner for 3 minutes, and your whole interactive workflow grinds to a halt. In a customer-facing app, that wait time is the difference between a user staying and a user bouncing. What surprised me here is just how big the gap is. Claude Fable 5 pumps out 63.4 tokens per second. Kimi K3 on its native provider, 33.3 tokens per second, nearly half the speed. Time to first token tells the same story. 109 seconds for Fable 5, 208 seconds for Kimi. Bear in mind, these are native provider numbers. Kimi K3 can hit 165 tokens per second on Fireworks, which actually flips the whole story. So this gap is really a native provider gap, not a model gap. If you're routing Kimi through a faster gateway, the speed difference gets a lot smaller than these numbers make it look. On native providers, Claude Fable 5 takes this one. Almost double the output speed and half the time to first token. I honestly expected the gap to be smaller, but 63 versus 33 tokens per second is hard to argue with. That puts Claude Fable 5 on the board first, 1 to 0 with 1 tie still sitting there. Now, test 3 is creative writing quality. What goes wrong is subtle, but it costs you. You ask the model to write in a specific tone of voice, it drifts after a few thousand words, and now you're spending an hour editing output that was supposed to save you time in the first place. What I found here is actually a bit frustrating. Claude Fable 5 has real data rated 4 out of 5 for writers by Norin, and it beat GPT 5.6 Sol in a 64 output genre comparison. Kimi K3, no published creative writing benchmarks at all. I looked, and there's just nothing to compare against. The hard truth is I can't hand this to Fable 5 just because Kimi has no data. That's not a fair comparison. Fable 5 also has a known weakness. It can drift on character voice in long fiction. So even where it has data, it's not a clean win. Test 3 goes down as another tie, but not the good kind. I was expecting at least some Kimi K3 writing data to exist, and there's genuinely nothing published. You can't score what you can't measure. So the board stays at Fable 5.1, Kimi 0, now with 2 tests tied. Test 4 is API pricing and cost efficiency. This one hits you in the invoice. You build a high volume app, you run 1 million tokens of output a day, and at the end of the month, you open your bill and realize you've been paying $50 per million when you could have been paying 15. So the numbers here are pretty wild. Kimi K3 is $3 per million input tokens, $15 per million output. Claude Fable 5 is $10 input, $50 output. That's more than 3 times the output cost. And with a decent cash ratio, Kimi's effective blended price comes out around $2.31 per million. I was expecting a gap, but not this big. Now, cheaper per token doesn't always mean cheaper total. If Fable 5 gives you better output quality and you need fewer retries or less post-editing, the real cost gap could shrink. Claude's blended effective price isn't published either, so that's an unknown. Take the raw token prices as a ceiling, not a final answer. Kimi K3 takes pricing, $3 versus 10 on input, 15 versus 50 on output. I honestly didn't expect the gap to be quite this clean, but the math is the math. That ties the scoreboard up at 1 win each, with 2 tests still sitting as ties. All right, Test 5 is multimodal capability. This one's a pipeline blocker when it goes wrong. You're building a content analysis workflow, someone uploads a video file, and your model just can't read it. So now you need a whole separate vision model in the stack, more latency, more cost, more things that can break. So this one's a clear split. Both models handle images natively. That part's a tie. But Kimi K3 can process video files directly in a single pass. Claude Fable 5 just doesn't support video input at all. Neither supports audio. So if you need voice reasoning, you're adding a separate pipeline regardless. Kimi K3 takes multimodal. I was expecting both to be roughly equal since they're both marketed as multimodal, but native video support is a real differentiator, and Fable 5 just doesn't have it. That moves Kimi K3 to 2 wins, Fable 5 at 1, with 2 ties on the board. Kimi K3 wins on price, full stop. $3 input, $15 output per million tokens versus 10 and 50 for Fable 5. It also wins on media support because it handles video natively, no secondary model needed. And flat pricing across the full 1 million token context means no surprise fees on big documents. Claude Fable 5 wins on speed. On native providers, it's 63.4 tokens per second versus 33.3 for Kimi, and time to first token is cut nearly in half. It also has a real creative writing track record, rated 4 out of 5 for writers, and it beat GPT 5.6 Sol across a 64 output genre test. Honestly, I went in thinking Fable 5 would run away with this, and it didn't. 2 wins for Kimi K3, 1 for Fable 5. So here's the decision rule. If you're running high volume, processing video, or watching your token bill, go Kimi K3, $15 output versus 50 is real money. If you need fast interactive responses and strong writing quality, Claude Fable 5 is the one.